So Dana White's Contender Series for the 2024 season is going to be kicking off August the 13th, and then will run on for 10 more weeks after that. And I wanted to talk about every single fight that has been confirmed for the show so far at the time of me recording this video, as well as just other fighters that have been confirmed as well, as I do understand that the video that I did put out about a week ago already has become a little bit outdated with a lot of new fight announcements and a lot of new fighters being added on. But I wanted to start out by talking about the fights, and at the very end I will talk about fights that have been confirmed but don't have a confirmed date yet, and then I'll talk about the other fighters that have been confirmed but their fight hasn't been confirmed. But before I do that, I did want to talk about my sources for this, because they're the ones that are putting in the hard yards and getting the information out to us. Le Mayonnaise on Tapology, Saba 2004 on Tapology, Random Knowledge on Tapology, MMA Prospects on Instagram, MMA Matchmaker on X or Twitter, and Sean Bitter on X or Twitter. So yes, I did write those on my hand, but they're all my sources for that. And now let's just kick off with week number 1. Only 2 fights have been confirmed so far for week number 1, but they are pretty good ones. Antoine Ho taking on Lon'er. This is going to be a banger. I mean, this is a fight which a lot of people are very, very, very excited about. And it's just because it's 2 of the best prospects right now at flyweight taking on each other very early on into their careers. And even if somebody did lose the fight, which someone will unfortunately, I think that you're going to see both of them in the UFC at some point, because they both are very young, up-and-coming, promising prospects. But I feel like with this one so far, just my understanding, is I do feel like Lon'er is just a little bit more developed as a fighter. I feel like Antoine Ho still definitely does have a little bit to work on, and is just still a very raw prospect, still with a lot of potential, but he's only 23 years old. In this fight, at the moment, I am leaning with Lon'er just because I have been so impressed by his striking and by his speed on the feet, but there definitely would be an argument for the other side. I'm not going to give predictions for every single fight, because I'll be honest, I haven't actually looked into them yet, but I will kind of give my early initial reactions and thoughts on who is going to be fighting. And then Bruno Lopez is going to be fighting Mikhail Sazaniani. I will be honest, I actually don't know much about Mikhail Sazaniani, aside from the fact that he likes to knock people out. Bruno Lopez is very well-rounded. He disappointed me, and I think a lot of other people a lot, last year on the Contender Series when he did lose to Brenton Ribeiro. He just kind of fought a firefight with Brenton and ended up getting KO'd, but he did make a pretty quick comeback in his next fight, and he's going to be coming back against Mikhail Sazaniani, who just loves to knock people out and knock them out in the first round. It's guaranteed to be a banger. I do just think that Bruno Lopez's well-roundedness should be able to get it done here, because he is a decent grappler as well as a good striker for light heavyweight. But yeah, he did kind of just get trapped into a firefight with a guy that likes to fight in firefights. So yeah, I think a lot of people are liking Lopez by submission as well. I mean, Sazaniani's a powerful guy. He likes to knock people out, but if Lopez fights a smart fight, I think he should be pretty good in that one. Now we've got Contender Series week number 2. Nothing's been added to Tapology, but I do know of 2 fights, courtesy of the MMA Matchmaker for this one. Torres Finney is going to be coming back. I'm very, very excited for this. Follow Torres Finney on Instagram. He's been talking about wanting to come back for a while. So happy to see him back. But he's going to be taking on Cam Roston, who was actually meant to be on the show last year. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Cam Roston has been doing some work with City Kickboxing recently. He has been fighting in New Zealand a little bit, but he hasn't fought since 2022. And to be honest with you, he hasn't really fought the best guys in the world. You know, he doesn't really have the best level of competition won, but I believe he has won quite a few kickboxing tournaments over here in New Zealand as well. But he's going to be taking on Torres Finney, who's going to want to take him down. I understand that he got a massive knockout recently against Tyson Jeffries, but in my opinion, the path to least resistance to defeat Cam Roston for Torres Finney is to do what has got him to the dance in the first place, and it is just take people down. You know, Torres Finney, he's a pretty short middleweight, but if you actually look at this guy, he's massive, you know. 5'8" for middleweight, but it's not really a bad thing considering his style. He wants to take you down pretty much, and being a shorter guy in the weight class helps him get to those hips and then just throw people over his shoulders. I don't know, it should be a fun fight, man. I do think that Finney will have an advantage in the wrestling. I think he probably will look to use that. Roston's a very talented fighter. We just hasn't seen him for a couple of years now. And I do think Finney's wrestling should be able to give him a little bit of an edge, is kind of where I'm leaning there. And then Pat Pitelick is going to be fighting against, I believe, Alex Gustafsson's brother, but maybe his half-brother, or maybe Andreas Gustafsson married and then changed his surname. I'm honestly not too sure, but I do believe he is related to Alex Gustafsson in some way. He's going to be fighting Pat Pitelick. Both guys are a little bit older for prospects. You know, Pat Pitelick is 35 years old. Andreas Berg Gustafsson is 33 years old. So I feel like whoever wins this one is probably going to get a little bit of a push afterwards, because when they sign younger guys, you know, they can kind of fight anyone. They've got time in their career. But I feel like if the UFC feels like one of these guys could be pushed into the top 30 or the top 25 pretty quickly, you might actually see them fight a pretty well-known fighter in their debut. Pat Pitelick's a very talented striker, big time power. Come back after a little bit over a year away and knocked out Ryan Leininger in 95 seconds in front of Dana White. I believe this was on a Dana White's Looking for a Fight series. And yeah, got the opportunity from there. And then Andreas Berg Gustafsson has kind of been working away on the regional scene. He's had some very good fights. I mean, he knocked out a guy in 10 seconds. His fight against Tony Lampinen was very fun. Jordan Lutterbach is now in the UFC fighting Sharaputdin Magomedov on short notice. So yeah, and he's also fought in KSW in the past as well. But yeah, I'm very much interested in this fight. I think it's going to be an absolute war. I think it's going to be a scrap. I'm actually not 100% sure either what the weight class is for this one. I think it's at 170 pounds, but it could be at 185. I could be wrong. I'm pretty confident it's going to be at 170 though. It's going to be a banger. I don't have a prediction for you guys at the moment. This fight was, I believe, just announced by Sean Bitter today at the time of me recording. So I look forward to it. And as we move on now to week number 3, Malcolm Wellmaker is going to be fighting against Adam Brumheld at bantamweight. And this is going to be a very interesting fight, and I feel like a little bit of a clash of styles, with Malcolm Wellmaker probably wanting to keep this one on the feet, and Adam Brumheld probably wanting to get this fight down to the ground. I think it's going to be fun. Wellmaker at the moment, I feel like, does have a lot of hype behind him. Definitely has had quite a few great knockout wins in his career, which definitely does help to build hype and notice behind you as a guy that is fighting on these smaller promotions. Adam Brumheld, it's kind of hard to know, because he hasn't really fought much at all. He's fought only once since 2.5 years ago, and that was against probably the best opponent he's ever fought against, because before that, wasn't really taking on the best opponents, but was finishing them, was getting a lot of submission wins in particular. I'm looking forward to this fight. I don't really have a lean right now, but I kind of am leaning Wellmaker by knockout. I mean, he definitely does have a lot of power. I think he is going to be the better striker. He's going to have to keep the fight on the feet, though. It should be a pretty fun fight, though, and I do look forward to it. Wellmaker does have a lot of hype, and quite a few fans are very excited to see him on the show. Michael, as well, is going to be fighting against Bogdan Grad. Bogdan Grad did fight last year on the Contender Series at 155 pounds against Tom Nolan, and he did look very undersized. I know that Tom Nolan in general is a very big guy for 155 pounds, but in general, Grad is definitely a featherweight in my opinion, and he has moved down to featherweight after that, and will be doing that for the Contender Series here. He has taken on decent opponents after that loss to Tom Nolan. It'll be interesting to see how he matches up against Michael Elswell, because Michael Elswell has been fighting good competition very recently as well in his career. 10-6 opponent in Cameron Graves, and then 5-2 opponent, another prospect. He did lose to another prospect here, but Yadier Deval is looking like a guy that could definitely go on to do great things, and then just won a couple of fights by KO, and one of them over Nate Richardson, who was always a tricky guy for a lot of people to deal with, and Elswell was able to go out there and get the knockout win. Grad is an interesting fighter to kind of tape, because in my opinion, I think he actually looks best when he grapples, but he just doesn't grapple much at all. Instead, he kind of resorts to throwing a lot of spinning attacks, and I don't know, it's weird, because I remember seeing him get outstruck by this guy. I don't think it was Renzo Mendes. I think it was someone else when I was looking into him, and I just didn't think he looked that good on the feet, but he does look good when he wrestles, and he just doesn't wrestle. So I don't have a lean for this one either at all, to be honest with you, but I think that Elswell is probably the safe pick. It looks like a lot of people are going with him so far as well. Then Jack Duffy is going to be fighting Jose Ochoa, and Duffy was meant to fight against Mitch Raposo, and Raposo actually signed to the UFC to fight this weekend at the time of me recording to this against Andre Lima on UFC 302. So of course they've found a replacement for that, and now Jack Duffy is going to be fighting against Jose Ochoa. Jose Ochoa is from Peru, but he does train at Shooter Box Diego Lima with Charles Oliveira, so he has become another one of Charles Oliveira's minions, like Felipe dos Santos, like Daniel Santos, like Marco Tulio Silva. I'm trying to name guys that I know that train at the gym off the top of my head, but yeah, he's become another one of Charles Oliveira's minions, and he's a savage, man. This guy's got a lot of KO wins. Did recently take on a very good opponent in the LFA. Before that, I think he was fighting in Peru, I believe is definitely where FFC is based. I think UWC is based out of Ecuador, but I could be wrong. But the point is, he's been fighting on the regional scene in South America. Now he's going to be taking on Jack Duffy, who's been fighting on the regional scene in North America and the USA. I'm looking forward to it. 7-0 versus 7-0. Ochoa's more of a striker. Jack Duffy's more of a grappler. It's just going to end up being a great fight. I don't actually have a lean for you guys. I think it's either going to be Duffy by submission or Ochoa by knockout. This fight isn't going to go all 3 rounds. I'm excited for it. And now that's all for week number 3. Let's go on to week number 4. The first fight is Eunice Dubin taking on Shannon Clark at women's flyweight. And I just don't really know anything about Dubin at all because she hasn't fought much. She's fought once in the last 4.5 years. And then recently fought for FFC, I mentioned before, and got a finish over a debuting girl. In fact, every single one of her pro fights is over a fighter making their debut. I just don't know how good she is compared to that level of competition, whereas Shannon Clark has really been testing herself against good fighters. She just fought Tiani Lopez, who was 5-0 in the LFA and won by submission, took on another prospect who was 2-0 at the time, and then before that, fought a 3-1 opponent very early on into her career, in fact, actually in her professional debut. So the level of competition that these two girls have fought is night and day. I genuinely don't know anything about Dubin, so I actually can't give a prediction, but just from looking at numbers on a paper, looks like Clark should be able to get this one. She is the bigger fighter, according to the height listed as well. Just don't know anything about Dubin. Really don't. Clark most likely is the lean right now. Now Will Curry is going to be fighting Jordan Santos. I think Will Curry should grapple in this one here. I think that's definitely his path of least resistance. This is the first fight I think that was actually announced for the show. It is a good matchup for Curry. I think Curry is a guy that the UFC wants in the promotion. A very marketable guy. Another guy from England as well, and another middleweight to make things even better because the UFC is looking for middleweights right now. So a middleweight from England that is marketable. He's got a cool nickname in Drago because I guess he kind of looks like Drago. The profile picture kind of represents that. Now taking on Jordan Santos, who has been taking on decent guys though. A lot of wins by knockout. I don't know how good his grappling is, and I've been seeing Will Curry been locking up a lot of submissions recently. TKO'd Leon Aliou, who was actually on the Contender Series, I believe in 2022 or 2021, Leon Aliou was on the Contender Series, and you've just been beating veterans of the game. He did unfortunately lose to Mick Stanton, but Stanton's a tricky vet on the regional scene over there in Cage Warriors. And now we've got a few more fights to talk about. Gage Young, I apologize, is actually a guy who doesn't have a opponent, but I know he's going to be on this week, is the rumor. So the rumor is that he has a fight for this week. We just don't know the opponent. If you know the opponent, please let me know in the comments below. He's a 23-year-old welterweight. Maybe going to be fine at 155, as he has been taking 165-pound fights. Was meant to fight against Jordan Griffin. That would have been at 170 pounds. But yeah, he lost one fight to Bobby Lee, who ended up fighting in Bellator. And then after that, just been knocking people out silly. Very fun fighter. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him take a step up in competition in the Dana White's Contender Series. And now Tommy McMillan is actually going to be taking on one of the most hyped up prospects in Austin Bashi. And it isn't actually 100% confirmed what weight class this is going to be at, because McMillan has fought at 135 pounds before and is fighting at 145 pounds now because he's a massive guy. He's 5'11". And then Austin Bashi is kind of the opposite. You know, he's been fighting at 135 pounds, but he's got a fight coming up this weekend. I believe not against Argo Huskic. I think there's a replacement opponent now. But anyway, if he wins this fight, he's going to fight Tony McMillan, is kind of what it's pending on, I guess. But he's 5'3", and he's a bantamweight. And the source that we've had so far for the fight has been claiming that the fight is at 145 pounds. And it's interesting to see. Now, it is worth noting, though, Austin Bashi probably isn't 5'3". He probably is like 5'5", maybe 5'6", as if you do look at photos of him standing next to other fighters that are listed around that height, he is about that tall. He's probably taller than 5'3", but yeah, it's just an interesting fight between two young up-and-coming prospects. I mean, Austin Bashi has an incredibly high amount of hype behind him, has taken on and beaten some really good prospects in his own right at 135. You know, look at all of these records that he's fighting. Askar is a good fighter. He's meant to fight against Ricky Bandejas, but ended up fighting a short-notice opponent. But now he's at 145, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like he might be too small for 145, but I'm not Austin Bashi. Maybe he can't make 135 anymore. Maybe he likes his chances at 145 in the UFC. I don't know, but just a young prospect versus another young prospect. Tony McMillan, a guy that's finishing a lot of fights, you know, undefeated as an amateur as well. It's going to be a fun fight, but I just don't know 100% what weight class that matchup's going to be in. And now my boy. My boy Ding Ning is going to be fighting probably the most hyped up welterweight prospect on the planet right now, Islam Dulatov. No. Please win, Ding Ning. Oh. Dude, I was so excited when Ding Ning was announced to be on the Contender Series, because if you guys don't know, I do have like a weird knowledge of the regional scene in China, especially this JCK tournament. And Ding Ning, you know, he's been running that, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he did lose this fight to Tusilebeki Kuibijang, but you know, I think he's like 2-2 against him right now, because he beat him earlier on in his career and he lost a couple times. Then he beat him recently in the 3rd round. It was a big time KO. And now it's like he's going to be on the Contender Series. And I was like, dude, I'm so excited. You know, he's only 29 years old. He's got like, what, 43, 42 professional fights. Islam Dulatov. One thing I'm going to say that does kind of help the Ving Ding case right now is I don't think Islam Dulatov is 6'6". He does work as a model in Germany, and his model page in Germany is listed him at 6'2". But he did fight against another guy that's listed at 6'2". I think it actually is John Palaiologos, who was listed at 6'2", and Dulatov was significantly taller than him. So either that model page is completely wrong, maybe he is 6'6", maybe he's like 6'4" or 6'5". I don't know, but yeah, he's a tall guy for the weight class. He's a very good striker. The only thing that me and my boy have going for us is he doesn't move his head. So there we go. You've got a central target, Ding Ning, man. Like, come on, dude. How fun would this guy be in the UFC? 27 wins by knockout. I mean, most of them in the 1st round. No, he's just got to take on the most hyped prospect at welterweight. Why would they do that to him, man? Anyway, unfortunately, I do think that Dulatov does win the fight, but it doesn't prevent my allegiance to Ding Ning. Let's move on to the next week. And now that we get to week number 5, this is actually the final week that, from what I have seen so far, that has confirmed fights. And then after that, I'm going to talk about fights that have been confirmed to be happening, but we just don't know what week those fights are going to be in. And then also, before I start talking about week number 5, to my knowledge, and to Yuji Yannick's knowledge as well, this fight isn't happening. As soon as this fight was announced or was starting to get talked about online, Yuji Yannick instantly posted on his Instagram page saying that the fight isn't going to be happening, and I have actually contacted him and messaged him, and he told me that this fight is not happening, and he's actually got a fight in Japan August the 16th. So maybe the UFC could call him for like a week number 10 kind of fight, or maybe he's going to get signed to the UFC if he wins that fight. I don't know, but one thing I can tell you is, to my knowledge at least anyway, Yuji is not going to be on the Contender Series in general, and he's not going to be fighting against Kamala Tony, so the search for Kamala Tony's next opponent is still underway. Now, with that being said, let's now get into Rafael Sakura fighting Uran Satibaldiev, which is going to be at light heavyweight. hyped. I'm so excited for this fight, man, I'll be honest. Rafael Sakura, I think, has actually spent most of his career fighting at heavyweight, but moving down to light heavyweight probably would be a good move. He did fight very, very recently. In fact, he's been fighting incredibly often recently, and I did actually talk about him. I believe I mentioned him in my prospects that I think should be on the Contender Series, but I said he should be on there at heavyweight, but no, he's going to be there at 205. He's just absolutely destroying all of his opponents here at Demo Fight, and I believe Demo Fight that's a great ad, isn't it? Just popping up right there. Is a promotion that you can get a lot of really good prospects coming out of there. I mean, Eduardo Mora, who is now in the UFC, was on there. Mario Piazon, who was on the Contender Series and won last year, was on there. It's a pretty good promotion. Sometimes you do get a little bit of mismatches on there, but for the most part, it is pretty good to see. Uran Satibaldiev is a fighter from Kyrgyzstan, and if you guys know, man, there's a lot of ads on Tapology recently, but oh well, I guess you guys can hang out with the Krispy Kreme donuts there. But anyway, Uran Satibaldiev, he's from Kyrgyzstan. I think the UFC probably will want to sign more fighters from Kyrgyzstan, because I believe the signing of the fighter that recently won at UFC 301, Miktybek Irobai, was a massive success because a lot of people from Kyrgyzstan have now started watching the UFC. And Uran Satibaldiev, to my understanding, actually moved from wherever it was he was training, maybe in Kyrgyzstan, maybe in Russia, because I believe Open Fighting Championship is a Russian promotion, to the USA, and won a couple of fights in the USA, and, you know, that's just kind of how you get the UFC's attention these days, and it worked. He's a good striker, he's a good wrestler. Rafael Sakura has kind of shown everything recently, but just not really against the best competition, so it's hard to tell. It's just hard to tell. But Bruno Assis is a good fighter, is a guy that I don't know if Bruno Assis was on a win streak, but he definitely does have good wins in his career, so that is a test for a lot of people, and we were able to see Uran Satibaldiev get through him pretty quickly, but right now I don't have a lean for the fight, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. Looks like a lot of people like Satibaldiev to win. It's interesting, because I think that we've seen an 11-0 record, but hasn't been over the best guys there. And now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is a fight that also was announced today. Yusri Belgari fighting Anvadik Daniel Bekov. And this is going to be another very... It's hard to predict these fights with Yusri Belgari, because he's actually a very talented kickboxer, but he's got an odd style. And it's funny, I was actually just watching Neverho Sterling's Twitch stream moments before recording this video, and I mentioned that this would be a very fun fight for him, but it turns out that Yusri Belgari is actually going to be going back down to 185 pounds for the Contender Series. And yeah, he fought on the Contender Series last year, and the reason why Marco Tullio didn't get signed from that performance is apparently Yusri Belgari was actually very sick and wasn't able to put up a good performance, and the UFC knew that, and because Marco Tullio didn't look that good beating him against a sick opponent, they didn't sign him, and that is apparently the reasoning there. After that, though, I think he fought at 205. Yeah, he fought at 190 and then at 205, and I was like, man, like, he's going to look good at 205 pounds, but no, he's coming back to 185. If you watch videos of him training with Alex Pereira, he's a really skinny dude, because he's 6'5", trying to fight at 185 pounds. And he's going to be taking on Anvadik Daniel Bekov, who is pretty undersized. I think he's actually fought at 205 pounds before. Yes, he has. He's been fighting at 205 recently, a very undersized light heavyweight, and also a pretty undersized middleweight as well. He is 5'11", and he's not really like a super big dude, but he's a big time striker. I know you would just assume that he's a wrestler, but he's not. He's a striker, and he's dangerous, man. I mean, and the whole time in his career as well, he's been fighting very good competition, with the exception of just one fight. The whole time he's been fighting guys with winning records. The whole time he's been fighting other prospects. So it's a hard fight to kind of just predict, because I know Yusri Belgari is an incredibly talented striker, but Anvadik is going to be coming forward and probably just trying to bomb away on him, and maybe even try and take him down, because he does have wrestling. He's not the best wrestler in the world, but he does have it. But yeah, Yusri has also just got a really weird striking style, like really weird, where he doesn't move his head, and he kind of has like his chin like stuck out, and then relies on head movement, moving it back and forth, but he doesn't really move his head like at all. If you watch a Yusri Belgari fight, you'll understand what I mean. His kickboxing style just doesn't really translate to MMA all that well, but yeah, Looking forward to the fight though. I guess my early lean probably is Belgary, but I just don't know. I just don't know. Maybe like he just had a really bad performance he did against Marco Tulio, but if he really was sick, who really knows? But that's it. That's it so far for the confirmed fights with dates. Mansour Abdul Malik is going to be fighting against Wes Schultz. We don't know a date for this one at the moment, or at least I don't as I'm recording the video. But yeah, two other prospects from middleweight here. Mansour Abdul Malik, most of his wins, in fact all of his wins in the first round, including his one amateur fight. Wes Schultz as well is a good big time finisher. One loss to Dylan Budka, who is in the UFC at the moment, and then after that, just all first round finishes. Very, very good fight. I'm looking forward to it. Big time amateur career for him too. I will admit, don't know too much about the matchup, so I'm not going to give a prediction, but it looks like two guys that are going to want to try and take each other out in round number one. So it's going to be fun. Talison Teixeira is fighting Artur Lopez. I can just kind of give a prediction right now. I do like Talison Teixeira in this matchup a lot. He is a heavyweight. He's 6'8" with an 81-inch reach. He's pretty slow, but he's a big-time striker with a lot of power. And he's won all of his fights he's won all of his fights in the first round, most of them by knockout as well. Artur Lopez, I just don't think he's that great. I mean, yeah, he's just never really fought anyone that good. And then when you watch him fight, he's like, you know. And I think he won this fight by disqualification. So, yeah, there's that. I think the Teixeira is going to win that one. Now, for Fatima Klein as well, I'm going to say I was wrong about this one here. I actually did spread misinformation on the internet with this fight because I thought that she was actually booked against the LFA champion. That's not true. She's actually booked against Alexia Tainara, who actually posted on her Instagram account that she had filled in for a short notice replacement in the UFC, but obviously that never ended up happening. So now she's going to be fighting on the Contender Series against, once again, probably the most hyped up prospect in MMA right now, and definitely one of the most hyped up prospects, if not the most hyped up prospect in women's MMA, in Fatima Klein, because she is incredibly talented, has been competing in some sort of combat sport for most of her life, big time grappling career as well, had an amateur debut when I think she was like 18 years old or maybe 19 years old, won that fight, competed in a lot of grappling events, and then just kind of committed a little bit more to MMA, and I think that she probably will be able to get past Alexia in this fight here with her grappling. But Alexia is also a good grappler as well, hasn't really beaten the best opponents in the world, but she's also a hyped up prospect too. But yeah, Fatima Klein, just such a good, talented fighter. And then after that, we are now going to talk about all of the other fighters that don't have confirmed fights. And just since this video is mostly about confirmed fights, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over all of the next remaining confirmed fighters and probably not talk about rumors, even though there are so many fighters that are rumored to be on the Contender Series. The first one is Hugo Canha. He's a heavyweight, very, very good wrestler, I believe. National wrestling champion in Brazil, and he's a heavyweight. Liam Anderson is a middleweight. He's 6-2. Lots of wins by submission, lots of wins in the LFA. And yeah, I mean, he's been put up pretty good performances overall, lots and lots of finishes. Mathieu Duclos is a very powerful middleweight from France. I believe his win, it must be this one here over Gayson Santana Moreno. He's been doing the rounds on Twitter, so if you're on MMA Twitter all the time, you'll probably see that pop up at some point. Andrei Pulayev is from Russia. He's a middleweight, 8-2. Big time KO wins, been fighting for Shlemenko FC, which is Alexander Shlemenko's promotion, which is cool. Cody Steele has a lot of hype behind him. I believe he's fighting at 170 pounds. I could be wrong about that. I'm prepared to be wrong. Let me know in the comments below if he's at 170 or 155. I'm sure somebody out there knows, because Cody Steele has a lot of hype behind him, has a lot of fans. Igor Cavalcanti is, this guy is, he's him, pretty much. Big time finisher, all wins by finish in the first round. To be fair, hasn't fought the best competition in the world, but he's looked good doing it, and the reason why he's looked good doing it is because most of his wins are literally in the first 2 minutes, which is just ridiculous. Quillan Selkild is a guy that a lot of people are very excited to see because he's from Australia. I think that the UFC needs to look into guys from New Zealand and Australia a little bit more, in my opinion, to go on the Contender Series. I mean, I'm thinking about guys like Aaron Toe, Navajo Sterling, sorry, that I mentioned earlier. And then there's also guys from Australia who I'm going to forget about, but Harry Webb is a big one. Justin Van Heerden's a big one. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many good flyweights as well that they're gonna slip my mind. I apologize for that, but yeah, there's a lot of really good guys from Australia that are deserving of opportunities. Akaro Brito is a featherweight. The UFC really wants this guy, and the reason why I can tell you that is because he hadn't fought for a bit, had a couple of cancelled fights, and then he was pulled out of this fight here against Konana Batista. And they said, no, we're not going to risk you losing. Get on the Contender Series. And yeah, so they really want him on the show. I can't understand why. Once again, big time KO artist. I saw one of his massive wins by KO. It must have been this one recently. There was a fight where he was in, and he was like involved in like a brawl, I guess. What's the word? Both of these guys were in the pocket. That's what I was the terminology I was looking for there. I'm sorry, it's late at the moment. And he just kind of like they engage in the pocket, and all of a sudden his opponent just drops to the floor as an insane KO. Very, very good fighter, very good striker. Good friend of the channel, Michael Imperato, recently won as a massive underdog in front of Dana White in Canada against Ricky Bandejas, who has had a very good run in Bellator. Imperato finished him in 52 seconds, and that is why he is going to be on the Contender Series. Ernie Juarez is 8-0. He's also a featherweight, of course, at the moment. And yeah, been fighting for Uriah Faber's A1 Combat, which is a promotion that I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again. I like it. It's a good promotion. Teruto Ishihara fought there, so of course I enjoy it. Anyway, Josias Misasa, I mentioned him before. He is from, I believe this is, yes, I was going to say this is the flag of Congo. He's from Congo, but he's also been fighting for this very interesting show called African Knockout. And African Knockout, if you don't know, is like the Ultimate Fighter on Netflix, except for fighters from Africa, and it is done on a little bit of a lower budget, but it's a pretty fun show. I don't know if he actually competed on the TV show, but African Knockout is the promotion. Very, very good fighter. I mean, all of his wins are by knockout, most of them in the first round. Be interesting to see how he deals with the step up in competition. Now we move on to bantamweight. Ota Tanzilov from Georgia, 9-0, 5'11" bantamweight. He's a big bantamweight. He likes to knock people out. What more could you really want? Billy Brand, 5-1, is a bantamweight, so a little bit inexperienced, I would say, for the show so far. We are looking, well, we've looked at a few guys that are 5-0. But yeah, 5-1 for Billy Brand. Very much on a win streak right now. Had a pretty good fight with Peyton Talbot, where he did have a lot of success in the wrestling. Very much good. What was I even going to say? Very much good amateur career, I guess. We'll go with that. But yeah, Uriah Faber's A1 Combat. You guys know I like that show. Billy Brand. Very interested to see how he does on the Contender Series as well, though, because we'll see if he can get that wrestling going, because he has been getting it done in the Uriah Faber's A1 Combat. Lewis Lee Scott, very, very good prospect. Just defeated Damate Pena. If you guys know who Damate Pena is, then you know. If you don't know, just look at his topology, and then you'll know. This guy was in a massive controversy with just having a little bit of USADA complications, I guess you could say. But no, Lewis Lee Scott recently defeated him. Massive win for him in his career. Very much an exciting prospect. Another guy with a lot of hype behind him. Another guy a lot of people are very excited to see, and I'm very excited to see him on the show as well. Rose Consecao, this is who I thought Fatima Klein was going to fight against. I was wrong. I'll spread you misinformation on the internet, but she is the LFA champion at strawweight. Very, very good prospect. Very, very good fighter. I hope that she does get into the UFC, because I do think she is insanely talented. Got a massive win recently against Elaine Lopez. Nicole Cagliari, I believe, is fighting at women's she's fighting at women's flyweight. I think she took a lot of time off. She did. She lost to Kay Hansen, who then went into the UFC and then took a couple of years off, and just has been finishing these girls in the regional scene. Now she's going to be on the Contender Series. Still pretty young, 27 years old, 5'3". Alice Ardeline, This girl's kind of interesting because I think she's like very famous online. Like, I think she's got like 1 million followers on TikTok and 300,000 followers on Instagram. If you're gonna look at her Instagram, I don't actually know what's on her TikTok. I've never seen it, but if you're gonna open up her Instagram, don't do it at work because it is not the content I expected to see when I opened it up. That's all I'll say. She hasn't really fought anyone good. My best guess, honestly, is just because she does have such a massive following online. I think they actually might give her a very favorable matchup, but be interesting to see what kind of happens there. And yeah, that's kind of it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.